Let's get to Maryland because we have more information now. The strength coach has been fired. The head athletic trainer has been fired.
Technically, the strength coach has parted ways. He got a severance of around $300,000. I would imagine there's probably a non-disclosure, non-disparagement tied to that. But so he technically wasn't fired. But you had this press conference on Tuesday where the AD, Damon Evans, who, by the way, lost his own job at Georgia for his own scandal, and the president, I thought, took a surprising step forward, at least in some level of accountability, because usually at those kinds of things, the schools try to steer clear of any kind of legal entanglement where it's going to up the price tag on what's going to come in some kind of settlement. They didn't do that, and things seem to be proceeding down this investigation in a hurry.
All right, I'll give people the short, quick kind of bullet points, right? Okay, so Jordan McNair was a redshirt freshman, very highly touted. That doesn't matter because he died. Like, even if he was a terrible player, doesn't matter. But a really talented kid. And they did wind sprints at the end of a series of workouts. And it was 80 degrees, so it wasn't like ridiculously hot. But at the end of it, he started to, what I would call, bonk out, right? He started to not be able to do it. And the head athletic trainer, right? That's the guy who's in charge medically of it. Was heard yelling, like, get his ass across the field, and other football players dragged him across the field. At some point, he may have had a seizure, may not have had a seizure, but didn't receive the proper medical care, goes to the hospital. They call the ambulance an hour later, an hour after the workouts, where his body temperature is 106. A couple weeks later, he actually dies from heat stroke. And then there was an ESPN.com piece that goes back and says, hey, the strength coach, the culture of it, the things they were saying, the way they were treating these kids.
Toxic culture was
the headline, a toxic culture. But, okay, so there's DJ Durkin. He's only been there a couple years. Will Muschamp comes out and defends. I didn't like the idea. You don't like unnamed sources. Like, what do you think Deep Throat was? He was an unnamed source. But how much is DJ Durkin responsible for a workout that he's not allowed to attend?
Yeah, I think we've seen stories of investigations into head coaches. Tim Beckman lost his job at Illinois for alleged player mistreatment and abuse. There was similar allegations about Kevin Wilson, who lost his job at Indiana, also in the Big Ten, by the way. Mark Mangino, who had a pretty successful run at Kansas, he was forced out after a lot of allegations. And what's different in this case is you had a tragedy attached to it. And I think that put a lot more chips on the table here. You have a lawsuit that is likely coming down the pipeline. It is going to get really messy there. And I think what the question is going to be, and this is from talking to some people who've worked there at Maryland, is what is the line in terms of everybody's line is different where you feel like that is unacceptable treatment. Because there's a lot of people, and you can go back years. I remember this was something buddies of mine would talk about. When Mike Stoops got the head coaching job at Arizona, there was like 11 different media people went out there to do their Mike Stoops story, and there was always some puke bucket story, which was like how they pushed people. They pushed them to limits they had not been because everybody was soft, and that is laying down the culture and pushing people. And it's romanticized in a large degree in athletics. If you want to go back to the Bear Bryant Junction Boys stories, there's a lot of those. But in terms of where the line is, and I think that's a valid question, and what is the expectations here? The people I've talked to have said, okay, the line in their mind is when you cross it is when it becomes more demeaning than just being demanding, and when it gets really personal and nasty. And if that's the tone around the program, why were these trainers who at the press conference, the school president admitted really dropped the ball? Why did these trainers who should have known better, where did they have such lax judgment? And was this something bigger because of that? And it's a really interesting story because now you have a lot of players on both sides of this. You had players who spoke anonymously and former coaches who worked at Maryland in the ESPN.com story, but now you've had a lot of players speak up with their names attached to it, talking about their experiences with DJ Durkin and the parents' experiences. So I think it's going to be very hard for the university to try to sort that out.
And I also think there's the part of it, and we saw this at Oregon. Willie Taggart was only at Oregon for 1 year, but when he first got there, right, they had two guys have to receive medical treatment for a couple of weeks, right, where they had these tissue injury where the tissue was like eating itself, and it was because they, again, same thing, tried to push him past these limits. And we've all been there. As an athlete, you learn your body, your mind says no, and you have to kind of push your body past this threshold. But there's a safety element to it. But we all know, like, every coach that comes in says, well, you guys lost because you were soft, and we're gonna toughen you up. Okay, let me quickly transition as we'll wait and see on DJ Durkin's fate. What do we know about where Ohio State is right now?
Well, the deadline that the investigation was set for should be this Sunday. You know, I mean, it's any time within the next 96 hours. We're expecting to find out what they have determined from their investigation into whether Urban Meyer did in fact follow the protocols and procedures that he said he did do when he issued that statement from his own personal Twitter account about 2 weeks ago. And I think from talking to people around this story, and again, it's not people who are investigating, but people around it, I think there's a lot of people who feel like there is an increasing chance that he's going to retain his job. That a lot of people are going to say, hey, look, did he do the right thing? Technically he did. Now, the part of the investigation is to find out what did he know when he knew about it, and then what did he do about it. And I think some of this stuff that's been swirling around the Urban Meyer Ohio State investigation has been related to Zach Smith, who's the fired receivers coach in question with these allegations. Publicity-wise, it didn't help that the Toledo Blade unearthed a DUI from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, 2013.
And it was one more thing that I think people will say, whether Urban Meyer keeps his job or not. But if he does keep his job, people are going to go, what was the reason why you kept him on? And then what exactly was it that you determined that's why you fired him? Now, we don't know a lot of the particulars on that. Do we know whether when they confronted Zach Smith was he not truthful about it? Did they catch him in lies? Is that what changed the night before Big Ten Media Days when this all really blew up? We don't know a lot of that. And hopefully when this investigation is concluded, we will get some measure of transparency to find out, because there's a lot of unanswered questions about where Ohio State goes.
Ton of unanswered questions. And I agree. And I said at the time on this show with Colin that what did he know? When did he know? What did he do about it? And we got to take a breath and allow kind of the facts to come out, right? There is some due process. On the other hand, like, I get that head coaches have to lie about things in recruiting and occasionally to the media. Even Nick Saban, of course, the all-time lie, right now, I'm not be head coach at Alabama. But that sort of lie and the stance in which is that, as great a coach as he is that really how you want your university to be represented? That's another question I don't think Ohio State answers properly if he keeps his job.
Yeah, I think the question is going to be, look, if Urban Meyer keeps his job, I think there's going to be a large portion of people who are going to think he's been exonerated for that. And all the other stuff about whether he, quote unquote, lied to the media at Big Ten Media Days, they'll get over that. The question I think that will hover around it, and I think unless you're an Ohio State fan, you'll be cynical about, is, you know, two of his biggest tenets of his program that he's claimed has been honesty and zero tolerance towards violence against women. And these are the issues that are hovering over him right now with this Zach Smith story. So we got to see. I mean, was he being truthful when he said this most recently in his statement? We don't know. Hopefully we're going to get some answers very soon.
It's going to be fascinating. And listen, this may be a selfish, want to just turn it to football, but it's the first offseason. We're not talking about Jim Harbaugh. He's finally got a quarterback. And you look at the tragic story of what's happened at Michigan State, and now this story at Ohio State, is that maybe this is the year, even with that incredible schedule, that Michigan ends up benefiting from the downfall of others and the rise of their own.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.